Jackson out of the backfield. Has some daylight. Hurdles to the end zone. In for the score, and he took a lick from Miles Jack, but he hung on.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I am your host, Hayes Boogie. I am joined by a very special guest today, representing Ravens Nation. I work with him on the AFC North Talk, so if you guys aren't familiar with that page, please be sure to subscribe. But if you are, you know who this guy is. Without further ado, my man Sonny of SZG Sports. Sonny, how you doing today, bro?
Hey, man, I'm excited. I'm excited for being here. I'm excited to do this game. Can't wait for this game. I'm ready. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I think that it's been a while since I've done previews. You guys who watch the channel know, it's been a down season for a while. Like it got to the point where I kind of didn't do the previews per se about each game. But with two wins in a row, and obviously with this being a major game for, I think, obviously the Ravens, with them having the playoffs riding on this, but also with the Bengals having momentum, I figured why not? Let's preview this game. So coming into this game, Sonny, what can you paint as a perception of the Ravens coming into this game? What has been some of your strengths over these few weeks? Or what are some things that concern you about this game coming in?
It is funny because in this game, the percent of the Ravens is the Ravens are coming in hot, right? Now, the Ravens are coming in hot. To be fair, we have been playing weaker-ish defenses, although the Giants, everybody talks about their defense, their offense, the problem with them, but the defense is fairly good. And the Ravens had fairly good success, especially on the running side. So the running game, that perception, I would say, is correct. Running game right now is on point, and it's more soaring than anything, right? Lamar's running great, J.K. Dobbins running great, Gus Edwards running great. And yes, none of them might broke 100 in any of these games, but they all three might go 80, 85, all three of them, which is insane to have three people rushing for 80. Our passing game on the other side is working also fairly good. It's an efficient passing game. It's not gonna overblow you with 300 yards. But the problem is the running attack exhausts you so much, and then the passing game just hits you up and it's sneaky, right? And then Lamar's like 250, 220, 230 for 2 touchdowns, and you're like, man, where did these 2 passing touchdowns came? Because all I felt was a running side. On the other side, the defense has been soft. This is a Raven defense that it is pretty good. It's pretty solid. But right now it's not healthy. And I think, and this is just my theory, I have no sources or anything, but I felt like the Ravens said, like, okay, Peters, I think you could play, but we don't need it for Daniel Jones. We don't need you for the Jaguars game, whoever they were going to put in. The case was Minshew. And so after the Cleveland game, right, the Browns game, they basically said, okay, Peters, you obviously got hurt a little bit, sit down for the next 2 games. Jamie Smith has been dealing with something different for the past 4 or 5 weeks, so they haven't even played him. And then basically has been Marlon Humphrey and a bunch of guys that we literally pick from the street. So obviously that suffered a little bit. I think for this game, I don't know who's going to play. But if Peters can play, I think they're going to make him play, or they're going to put him to play, because this is a critical game. And the Bengals receivers are still tough, right? And then Allen came up and just torched the living out of the Texans. Although Texans defense is not as great, but still, right? And the other thing is the D-line has been playing a little bit better. I think Judah has been playing better. I think it's because Yannick Ngakoue is getting so much, attention. But we are based essentially, if we rush 4 or 5, it's all about pressure, no sacks. How we produce sacks is on blitz. But our blitzes, for some reason, I don't know if our blitzes are more exotic. People say it's more exotic. I don't think it's that much special, but it does confuse O-lines across the league, right? So we have been successful with that, and then that we get home, and then the quarterback of the other team is just scrambling. And when we have our corners, that's when turnovers are happening. We haven't had that many turnovers, especially on the interception side. Fumbles, oh yeah, we're mastering fumbles. So the receivers, you better just hold to the ball, because we are coming for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, you hit it right on the head. Like, I think several weeks ago we were wondering what was going on with Lamar Jackson. There were some struggles, but he essentially turned it around. The offense, and I think you talked about this as well, there was a lot of talk about Greg Roman and stuff like that, but it seems that you guys have turned it around and this offense has caught on fire. And I think that you made some good observations, like you said, on defense. Like with you guys going against the Jaguars, that wasn't really a game that you would want to risk putting Marcus Peters out there to get re-aggravated. But with this situation, it's almost kind of different because it's not a Bengals team that has kind of, in a sense, laid down. And that wasn't the case with the Giants either. Let's not get it mistaken that they were still fighting for that playoff spot over in the NFC least, as we call it. But it is definitely something that's going to be interesting, right? Because you got Brandon Allen, like you said, coming off of a game where he was on fire. This Bengals offense, I still can't believe that they put over 540 yards, I believe, on that Texans defense, which we haven't seen that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, someone put out a stat, and it was like the last time we've seen something like that was like Boomer Esiason. So for it to come from Brandon Allen was insane. I want to ask you a little bit about not Matt Judon, but about Yannick Ngakoue, because we know that you guys made the big trade for him. He was a guy that really excelled in Jacksonville, got traded to Minnesota. Didn't seem like he kind of fit what they were doing there, so they kind of traded him to you guys. Now, he comes from a 4-3, so I figured there was going to be like a little bit of a learning curve for him to get comfortable in that defense. Do you think that he's starting to kind of become more comfortable in that defense with his role?
I think he is comfortable-ish. So if Minnesota, he actually worked. He had 5.5 sacks in 6 games or 7 games. So he was producing in Minnesota. I think the problem with Minnesota, they're like, we ain't gonna sign this guy because they literally have no money going on. And they were like, okay, somebody wants this guy. Okay, here you go. So we got him. And my concern was, because in the AFC North Talk, I said this early, was like, he's coming from a 4-3 defense, which he thrives. He's a 3-5. So he's going to be an outside linebacker. And as an outside linebacker, we asked more from them. And that is the problem. When he goes rush the passer, he's okay. He's not bad. But the problem also is when we rush the passer, sometimes we just rush 3, right? Sure. We back some people out. So now you don't have one-on-one matchups sometimes. So he's really good bending the corner, right? And he provokes pressure, but it's hard for him to get it home. What I would say he's feeling more comfortable is doing the other stuff, stopping the run, because at the beginning I felt like he was lost, setting the edge. I'm seeing more of him setting the edge. On coverage, I still don't see him on coverage. So it feels more like when we go and pull somebody for coverage, it's more on Bowser, which at that point, now your defense, you can read it, right? Yannick is there, he's coming, right? Which is one of the things that the Ravens do great is when we had Judon and Bowser there, they both might be coming. They both might back out. One of them might come. One of them might back out. Sometimes, so you don't know who is coming which way at any moment, right? But Yannick is still that problem. It's not on. Well, I'm not saying it's on him because he has played forever in a 4-3. That's what Minnesota runs. That's what the Jacksonville Jaguars run. But that's not what the Ravens run. The Ravens run one of the weirdest defense, right? We will have Brendan Williams sometimes drop back. We will have Calais Campbell sometimes backed out, and then having Patrick Queen just go blitz. So I think it's all a mental adjustment. Earl Thomas, when he was here, he said it best, like, this is one of the most complicated defense that I've seen. And it is, right? Ed Aguero has talked about it. A lot of players have talked about it. So it's definitely an adjustment, especially for somebody that has done basically the same type of defense for the longest time. But you can feel his presence, definitely. And I think if you go check actually Mac Judon's number have increased since Yannick Ngakoue has been here. So I think he's helped Judon a lot. It's just he does a lot of things that don't show up in the stat sheet.
I think, like you said, just being there, his presence, commanding that attention from the offensive coordinators and the offensive line and the tight ends to help with him definitely does free Matt Judon up. Before we continue, I just wanted to get into some of the comments here. My guy Aquila the Great here says, can his dog get a shout out? I got to take her to the vet and we don't know what's going to happen. So Aquila, I'm not sure what the name is, but definitely shout out to your dog and appreciate you for being here for sure. And I think there's another one here from Justin Ferris says the Bengals defense actually looked good last time that we played Baltimore. And if they play like they did against Pittsburgh, we could be in for a surprise. So one thing that I want to talk about is I don't want to forget totally what happened in that first Ravens game, because it was, like you said, you guys throw confusing blitzes. It definitely confused Joe Burrow. I think that was probably his first bad game that he had of the season. Do you think that that's going to continue in this game? Like, are they going to throw something at Brandon Allen that he hasn't seen? Or do you think that the Yannick move kind of makes it more obvious, as you said, with like the blitz packages?
No, because even with Yannick, we're still blitzing very weirdly. The thing is, what most Ravens fans expected when Yannick was here is like, oh, we're going to get pressure with 4 now. Mm-hmm. And look, if the Ravens ever can figure out how to get pressure with 4 or 5 with this secondary, the league is in huge trouble. The problem is the Ravens have not been able to figure out how to get pressure with 4 or 5, and the only way to get pressure is sending a bunch of guys, which puts a lot of pressure, no pun intended, on the backside. So that is important to know. I think the reality is they are going to blitz. They are going to, because Allen looked comfortable in this game against the Texans. The O-line has sneaky played fairly well. You think about how the O-line has been playing from early in the year, so you expect a big drop as the O-line got hurt. And our worst, I think, has been the same. Something's better play, which is oddly weird. I think coaching should take a note on that. But overall, the Ravens are just going to probably bring the house and say, like, we're going to pressure from the right, from the left, and see if Allen can handle that. Burrow couldn't. And that's something the Ravens do a lot to rookies. And the other side, just to the point of the comment, is the Bengals defense had Lamar also confused. Lamar should have thrown for way more picks than he thrown. Now, from that game to now, Lamar has shifted a lot how we're playing. Lamar has played more conservative on the passing, less chances for picks, although he has taken his fair chances. And I think it is also early in the year, we were doing a lot of dropbacks and trying to pass more the ball. And as the season has gone by, we had gone more 2019, run the ball. So now the defense has to collapse. So now he has more one-on-one matchup, less guys. Look, the reality is if you have a cover 2 and you can quasi-generate pressure and you're playing man, those safeties are there watching the quarterback and reacting, and that's how the picks are coming. Well, if you have to bring those safety there, the corners really, when you're playing man, it's very hard for you to produce a pick unless it's just a horrible thrown ball. You're more there to bat the ball down and not to get beat. So if the Bengals can play cover 2, well, yeah, that's they could potentially create problems in the passing game. The problem is right now, David Johnson torched him for more than 100 yards last game, right? And this is not a Texans team that is known for running the ball extremely well, or they're more on the passing side. Well, that is on I'm not disrespecting David Johnson, more of a vanilla type of run. The Ravens right now throw you the most weird also running attack, right? Because they can look right now in the last game, you had J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Lamar on the field. J.K. Dobbins was line wide. They were sweeping him, and sometimes they gave it to him on the sweep, sometimes, and then Gus Edwards was a leading run. Sometimes they fake it, right? And now you have defense looking into that, and you give it to Gus to run it on the other side. And sometimes you have the sweep, you fake, and Lamar running in the middle. So you had 3 legitimate guys that can run the ball. Where's it coming? Right, and then the linebackers have to be extra disciplined, right? And it's hard. You can blame the linebacker, right? Because even if you're watching the O-line, on the one time that the jet sweep happened for J.K. Dobbins, the O-line actually went and blocked as a Gus Edwards had it.
Right.
But J.K. took it to the other side, and they only had Mark Andrews blocking on the left side. I mean, how can you defend that super hard? And that I think it was like a 14-yard gain. And that I was like, man, that was pretty good. Not for us, for the defense, because there's so much misdirection. Right. I'm surprised they only gave up 14 yards. So you always with Baltimore and the running attack, you have to be extra disciplined.
Right. I think you're right. And that switches us to the offense. But the key thing that you said there, for you guys that watched the segment that we have cut the tape on with the coach, he's always being able to point out which direction that the run is going based on the blocking. And if you heard what Sonny just said, which is why you should subscribe to SZG Sports, he's saying that the Ravens will block one way like it's a run to someone, but go completely to someone else. So that's definitely something that the Bengals will have to watch out for. Offensively, let's talk about Des Bryant, because Des Bryant is coming on. He's been out of the league for a while. You guys signed him to the practice squad. You finally added him to the active roster. It's been some ups and downs because he had the one thing where he was on the C list right before the game against Dallas, which I felt sucked for him because I wanted him to be able to try to get some revenge there. But how has it been with him? Because it seems that he's finding a role in this offense, and he could be someone that we have to watch out for in this game.
So Des Bryant came and he embraced what a Baltimore receiver has to be. Any receiver has to Baltimore. You have to basically be gritty and have to work. You can't worry about stats because you might not get no catches, one catches, but you have to block and which is hard for a receiver, right? Receivers don't like to block. So that's where he is. He's gritty. He's there motivating the young guys, especially in the red zone. And the red zone is where you can see that we bring him more because we don't have that tall guy really. And what he's been very smart. Look, he had a touchdown last week. And there was a great play design. We had him, White, and Mark Andrews on the slot. Mark Andrews goes and does a big post, and the defense just gets sucked because Mark Andrews will command that much in the passing game. Here comes Des behind him, doing the same thing, right? Just wider, and he was just open right there over the top, and easy touchdown. But in the game that we played, I think it was against Jacksonville, whenever it was his first touchdown, Lamar was in trouble. He got pressured through the middle. He was rolling left, and Des basically came back, right? Because Des is a savvy receiver. Young guys sometimes just sit there because they don't know what to do. Des was basically came back, and Lamar found him for a touchdown. And look, Des has been playing fairly good. I think he's embracing the role. The first game that we played against, I think it was against Cleveland, whoever it was that he played, basically they were giving him 12-yard cushion. I don't know why you're doing this against Des, because Des is not going to burn you out. So what they did was, okay, throw it there, 4 or 5 yard catch, right? Throw it there again, 4 or 5 yards. I think he ended up with 6 catches for like 60-something yards because they were easy completions. And I think that the league still doesn't know how to defend Des, and not that we're overusing him or anything, but that is good, right? And then, like I said, in the red zone, he is the other tall target. You have Mark Andrews and you have Des Bryant. One of those two guys are going to be your high point guy. Throw it there, and Des might not have a lot of hops or not as much, but compared to the rest of our receivers, he is that 50-50 quasi guy, and he's playing with a chip in the shoulder, so he is playing tough right now. So I think they're utilizing, bringing him slowly, but definitely in the red zone is where he has 2 touchdowns in 4 games that he has. So that's not bad for a guy that was out of the league for 2 years.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm hoping that he's not going to be throwing up the X this weekend in PBS. But one thing that's interesting. One thing that's interesting is we kind of have talked about the end of the season with the Bengals kind of playing the spoiler role. It seems like it's going all the way back for, I think, 12 straight games that the Bengals, or maybe it might be even more than that they've won at the end of the season. As a Baltimore fan, is that something that you're worried about? Because you guys have kind of been in this mode, and I know this just from us talking together, that you guys have been trying to win out and just get into the playoffs. Just win, do what you guys have to do to get in. Do you think that there's going to be any kind of pressure on you in this game? Like if it's super competitive, or is this something where the Ravens have to come out and essentially punch the Bengals in the mouth? Like, what do you think are the ways that the Ravens have to get through this game? And what are your opinions as a Ravens fan? Are you worried about this game being that the trend that the Bengals have ending the season at home?
Yeah, this is it. Look, the Ravens, one thing, they haven't taken anybody lightly, because even against Jacksonville, they just came and they just thumped them, right? With New York, we started very hot and then we cooled down a little bit, and then I think the defense was having a lot of stupid penalties. They weren't scoring on us, but they moving the ball fairly good for a moment there. So one thing, I don't think the Ravens would take anything lightly. I think actually Harbaugh probably has that 4th and 12 play just looping. So you see what will happen if we lose, that disappointment, right? So look, am I worried? I'm worried every game, and because any given Sunday, anybody can beat you.
We've seen it the last couple Sundays.
Exactly. You guys beat Pittsburgh, and then the Jets beat the Browns, but especially with the Bengals, what do the Bengals have to lose? Well, you can in theory say draft pick. Okay, sure. But it's playing a spoiler role is so much bigger. Like for not necessarily for Ravens, Baltimore fan, they can think about when the Orioles went and the Red Sox were in Camden Yards. All they had to do was win. I think 1 of 3 games, and we swept an Oriole team that barely have any wins, and then we were celebrating like we won the World Series. And this is what it is for the Bengals. Right. If they can keep the Ravens out of the playoffs, this is like a Super Bowl for them. And it's not small. People are like, oh, well, that's petty. No. That's your opponent. That's your rival. You don't want him to succeed. And if the Bengals can prevent that to succeed, and it is in Cincy too. So even you don't want that. And I think what Schultz for the Eagles, I don't know if you saw this article, Schultz basically was calling a no hat, whatever it was basically saying we're not going to have any team celebrating that they go into the playoff on our field, because if Washington beats Philly, they go to the playoffs. And I think Cincy probably has the same mentality. This is something I said to Ace before. For better or for worse, these players are playing hard. They're playing hard for Zach. They're playing hard for each other. They're just playing hard. So they're not coming to lay down. And I think Baltimore knows that. So Baltimore's coming hard, and Baltimore's not going to take anything for granted. The question is pressure-wise, so they have a lot of pressure because they had to win. But it's been like that for the last couple of weeks. So I think they're coming in hard. I actually think they're probably going to active a couple of players to people, because right now, if you go check our injury list, it's like 2 pages long. We have a lot of people hurt. Right. And the punter is out, which is going to be very interested. The punter went to the C list. So it's going to be very interesting as moving forward what we're going to do, because the reality is if it becomes a field position game, right, who's going to punt? And they're saying Tucker. I have never seen Tucker punt. Apparently, he punted a little bit in college, but that was years ago. So that's going to definitely be interesting. And also, our punter is our holder for field goals, right? So that's definitely placed in the special team. So that's going to be our punters more than, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. No, the holding, the punting. So that's also a monkey wrench. I think the Ravens are coming super focused, because I think the Bengals are also coming focused and just trying to get this win early. I think they're going to try to put it away early and quick. But the reality is, even though we beat the Bengals by a lot last time, it wasn't because the offense. That defense came balling. If the pieces are not there, they cannot come with the same intensity, right? Because if our second corner is the Averett that we just brought up from IR, and our third corner is Williams, the ex-Green Bay Packer, 37-year-old, that basically also brought from the street like 3 weeks ago. It's not the same when we had Jimmy Smith, Marcus Peters, Humphrey, everybody healthy. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So 2 things that I want to talk about before we wrap up. The first is this also with Week 17 could potentially be the last game for AJ Green. He's known as the Ravens killer, and he's actually coming into this game. If he gets 1 touchdown, I believe he ties Chad Ochocinco's touchdown reception record. If he gets 2, he breaks it. And this is kind of an emotional week, I think, also for Bengals fans. And it's kind of crazy that this story could potentially end with AJ going against the Ravens, who he's had some success against in this division over his career. What are your thoughts on like AJ Green coming into this game and this season, and what do you expect to see from him, just from a Ravens fan's perspective?
We hate AJ Green, but it's a hate not because he is dirty or anything. It's because of what he does to us. AJ Green is probably the receiver that has killed us the most in the past, 5 or 7 years. You have over there Brown, but Brown has had clutch plays like the stretch that Ravens like to call. And I think some people might say Brown too, because we played with the division for them for so long, and the Bengals had that rush for like 3 years. But other than that, it's been up and down for the Bengals. But overall, AJ Green has been the Ravens killer. And we cannot put, if we don't have all our corners, we can't even put Marlon Humphrey on him, because Marlon Humphrey probably needs to go with T. Higgins. Boyd is not playing, right?
I think Boyd actually did return to practice.
Okay.
But we'll have to see. He had a concussion I believe the game before, so he may actually be back in this game.
So you have Boyd, you have Higgins. Yeah, and this is the problem, right? Who do you put on AJ? AJ will have whoever the third corner is, and that's the reality. So AJ might have a decent game. This is why our D-line has to come and pressure the hell out of it, because although I would love AJ, and trust me, I would like him here next year, we can't let him take the touchdown record of Chad Johnson or Jacinco, not because he's the record, it's because we need to try to blank Cincy as much as we can. Because if that offense gets rolling, that's a problem, right? So, look, AJ Green's a phenomenal player. Still at this time in his career, he still has some gas in the tank. But I think the problem with AJ is it's more health, right? He's been unhealthy the past couple of years. But when he's on the field and healthy, he's still a problem. So for the Ravens, be a problem because our corners are not healthy. So who are you going to put on Green? I have no idea.
So the last question I want to get into is kind of takes it away from the matchup. And I think the unique opportunity that we have with AFC North Talk is we kind of have to watch everyone's teams throughout the season. Like, I've never done that where I've had to watch every single AFC North team. And so we kind of know and have insight about each other's teams. So I kind of want to talk about like the future, because you kind of responded to me on Twitter with some things. And if you're not following AFC North Talk, please be sure to enter that into your YouTube search and subscribe to our channel over there so you can hear more of these conversations. But I want to ask you about the Bengals' future with the draft pick, because you have always told me, and I think since before we even created AFC North Talk. And for those listening, this guy is the creator essentially of AFC North Talk, because he brought us all together to kind of do this AFC preview. I think that was 2017?
Yeah, we started in my channel a couple years ago, and then last year, I think it was actually either you or Tony, one of you two said like, hey, why don't we just do a channel just of this? And during the pandemic, I think we said like, you know what, let's just do it. Just before the season started, we started doing it, and people start to like it. And man, the numbers are great.
Yeah, they're going up. It's crazy because, like you said, you reached out to all of us, I think in 2017, brought us on your show, and we loved it so much. It was like natural chemistry immediately when we all came together, and we're like, you know what, we got to do this at the end of the year, because I think we did a beginning of the year, then we did an end. We ended up doing like a drafting and all sorts. But for you, you've always told me, you know, the Bengals have to fix that offensive line. You've said that from day one. You've been like, okay, Jonah is this, but I don't think Jonah is enough. And I think that you've said, because, you know, I was sold on Panay, you already know this, for that top 3 pick for a while. I was just like, you know, you're right. I want to make sure that we solidify this. We protect Joe Burrow, especially after the game that the Ravens killed us in that game with the blitz. So obviously things have changed a little bit. You know, we've moved to number 5. Potentially we could end up moving to number 12. But what are your thoughts on what the Bengals should do from a draft aspect? I know that you kind of talked about tackle, but for you, what is that thing? Because some people are saying go get Kyle Pitts. Some people are saying go and get Jamar Chase. And from a team like the Ravens, you guys may need receivers, but you kind of have a different philosophy on the offensive line and what we should do there. So just, Sonny, if you can, give your thoughts on what you think the Bengals should do going forward.
Yeah, and before I continue, look, one of the things that makes the AFC North Talk great is, guys, we have nothing scripted. All we know is we're going to talk about the games. That's literally it. So what you see there, we don't, before we, you know, we trash talk before and after the stream, but we don't talk like, okay, let's make sure we say this. No. It's pure raw. There's no script. Saying that, and shout out to everybody that is part of the AFC North Talk. Look, I love Pitt. I would love Pitt in Baltimore or Chase or one of these top receivers. But the reality is, in the case of the Bengals, not the Ravens, O-line is critical for any team. O-line play in the league is horrible. You don't want Burrow to be Andrew Luck, meaning Andrew Luck got to a couple playoffs early, and as soon as they had to pay him because they had no O-line, that team basically became trash. All throughout his career, he was injured, and he had a very, very short career of a very good prospect, right? You have 2 really good receivers. Even if AJ Green doesn't come back, those 2 receivers are going to be pretty good. And a tight end, you can find either out in the market or in the 2nd, 3rd round. But O-line if a team has a really good O-line, they're not letting him go. You might trade for him, which look what Houston had to do, 2 firsts and a third for Tunsil, but they're gonna sign him. A young tackle, young guard, they're gonna sign him. So will Pitt look good at Cincy? Of course he will look good. Can he be explosive? Sure. Will he be effective? I don't know, because a guy that, if we remember, was a no-miss guy. It's not AJ, but Howard that went to Tampa Bay a couple years ago.
Howard, yeah.
OJ, thank you. Dude, everybody talking like this guy might be the best tight end, and I liked him as his tape from college. But the problem is, one, they already had 2 great receivers, so that means there's only one ball, so they had to distribute. Second, if you only throw, that's going to make you one dimension, so you have to run the ball. So also less targets for that tight end. Third, the Tampa had a really bad O-line. So Jameis Winston, turnovers, yes, he's reckless with the ball. Also, not a lot of time. So a lot of times, because he wanted a big play, he just threw it out there. So Jonah Williams is a guy that I love. I'm still not sure if he's going to be a left tackle or he needs to be pulled as a guard. But Ace knows that I love Jonah coming out of college. He was my favorite. I think you guys probably gonna draft Bush, but obviously the Steelers jump in front of you. You ended up getting Jonah, which is fine. Jonah, love him, but the problem with Jonah right now is 2 years, 2 injuries. That is concerning. Okay, so moving forward, I think that O-line has to be a priority. Look, you can sign people in the free agency. You guys have the money, so you can overpay for a tight end that is coming out there, or other, especially if the cap goes down a little bit. That means a lot of players have to be released. But O-line, people are going to try to keep the O-line. So that means you have to look. If you're in the fifth position, I forgot the guy from Northwestern. Some people are talking about him as a tackle. He's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is why your scout team this year has to be top notch. You have to go and scout the hell out of this guy, right? Also, if Panay is that much better than anybody else, then you go and with whoever is the second or third. Let's say it's the Dolphins at 3. Say, Dolphins, you know what? I'll give you my third and my first for you to drop 2 spots. I need Panay. Right? Because if you love Joe Burrow, you need to protect Joe Burrow. Because if not, what's going to happen is in 4 years, Joe Burrow is going to be a shell of himself. He's not going to be great. And in this division, where teams are very, very good, with minus Pittsburgh, in the case of young quarterbacks, it's going to be a problem. Look at Baker. We talk in the offseason how Baker wasn't really good. He's not. O-line fixed pretty much Baker. Right. And a good running game, but the running game was there last year. So the only difference was upgrading the O-line, make that running game that much better. Stefanski, obviously, but the O-line. Baker has time, and Baker with time is dangerous. Burrow with time will be dangerous. The problem right now with the Bengals is if Jonah's not healthy, you need a left tackle, you need a right tackle. Your center is okay. So you need a lot of So you need a lot. Now, guards, usually there's one that makes it to the free agency. Boom, you have to go get that guy. But this is the year, Bengals fan. It's not a sexy position. It's not a sexy draft. But this might be the year for you guys to draft the fat guys because you need protection to Burrow. You have a decent running. Look, if you're a Bengal fan, sit back. I have the quarterback. Mixing us a really good running back. Right, I have 2 really good receivers. I don't really have a tight end, but again, you can get a tight end in the off season. And then if you go on the defensive side, yes, I think you need some corners. And sometimes corners make it to the off season, to the off season. And your D line is really good when healthy, even without Dunlap. And linebackers, I know you drafted like 8 last year. I know
you were a fan of Logan Wilson, though. You like Logan Wilson, though.
Oh, I still like Logan, but the reality is with rookies, to be fair, this is why I will not say go draft a linebacker. You need time for them to develop. Logan was a 3rd-round pick. You had to give him some time, especially when your D-line started decreasing, especially that middle. That middle of the D-line is huge for linebackers. So saying all that, their weakest position, you have holes in the defense, but there's nothing weaker for you than O-line. And with a bad O-line, that means your running back is going to struggle a little bit. But more importantly, your young quarterback. And if your young quarterback is getting hit, not only injuries, But we're talking about that internal clock start speeding up, and sometimes then without any pass rush, he will try to force it because he just thinks he's gonna get hit. So it's important for you guys to protect Burrow. I think it's critical. I think if the Bengals want to take that next step, and might take 2 years, depending who's out there in free agency, could take 1, especially if Jonah comes back healthy.
Right.
If Jonah come back healthy, let's say you trade up, get Panay, and let's say Panay's a better left tackle, you put Jonah on the right tackle side, or you find a right tackle in the offseason, you put Panay, you put Jonah, and then whoever the right tackle is, and then you put Jonah in the left guard. Ooh, now you have 3 at the 5, that looking way better. Let's say in the second round, whoever the guy is, I haven't done scouting yet this year, but whenever it comes, I can give you more input. But let's say there's a really good guard because you guys pick early in the second round. Boom. Oh, wait. Now we're looking good for the 5. Well, if you have one that is not great or fairly good, well, the other 4 will help him. And that at least helps Burrow. But if not, man, it's going to be another long season for the Bengals. And it's not because there's not pieces there. You guys have pieces. But the critical part is O-line.
Yeah, you've been preaching that to me for a while now, and I definitely agree with you on that. One thing that I want to also give people perspective on is a lot of people want Jamar Chase, right? So let's say, for instance, they don't get 2 or 3 linemen to that line. They just get 1, let's say, tackle or something. Taylor Moton comes in free agency. Do you take another tackle or a guard or something, or do you go and get Jamar Chase? And if the Bengals do get Jamar Chase and have Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, are the Ravens afraid? Like, you as a Ravens fan, are you afraid?
I mean, I said before the season that I love the skill position for the Bengals. Am I afraid? No. I mean, I'm concerned. Let me not say I'm concerned like this year, but it wouldn't be different than this year. It will be the same concern that I had this year because I know I can pressure you and I can force Burrow to throw it quick. And now I can put my corners play tight because I'm going to get to him. Look, the other thing I will say is before drafting Chase, I would trade that number 1 pick because you guys have money and it's a very good draft pick, and try to see if there's somebody trying to move for a left tackle because they might not have a lot of money to sign him in the future, and then you can let them draft the tackle and be an experiment. For example, I said this in my stream. I'm not saying you trade with Baltimore, but Orlando Brown Jr. is a guy that we might not have the money for him in 2 years, right? So if somebody has an Orlando Brown Jr., Pro Bowl guy, young guy, and you get that 5th pick, and you're like, I'll give you this 5th pick for this proven tackle, young tackle. I'll pay him. It's like drafting, right? It's like drafting Panay, but with Panay, even though he looks great, we've still seen players that look great in college and not produce. With this other guy, will be a proven person. So I will even say before looking for Chase, look out there. Who is the team? And there's teams right now that are negative cap for the coming year. They might have a guy that they cannot pay, right? And they might be willing, like, here's the 5th. And again, guys, a 5th pick is a lot, but not for a premier tackle. You get that guy and think about you just drafted Panay. You have a proven guy. It's there. I would say before getting Chase, and I know Chase is good, but the reality is, if you cannot protect Burrow, you know where you're going to pick next year? 5th overall. You're just going to be in the same boat, and that's what you don't want. You want, if you're a Bengals fan, what you want is next year to pick in the 15 to 17. You basically play well enough that you either were competing for a playoff spot and you just barely miss or were close, similar to what the Raiders are in the 7th or 8th win. If you can get to the 10th, that's great, but let's more realistic to the 7 or 8 win, because the following year, when Burrow's in year 3, now you can make the jump to be a playoff contender. But this is a process, and that O-line will not fix itself just like that. So again, I think that 5th pick, you might be able to entice some teams that might have a tackle. Look, example, Bill Belichick. They might have a guard. They might have a tackle. They're like, okay.
Joe Tooney.
Yeah, we might not be able to compete for a couple of years. We don't even have a quarterback. So what are we going to protect? We don't even have a quarterback. So they might be willing. In the case of Tooney, he's a guard. So you might even get them the 2nd round pick because it's such a high 2nd round pick. Boom, there's your guard. So I think the Bengals have to be creative. The draft can be for trading. And in the case of the Bengals, if they stay whole with the 5th pick, which is what I'm hoping, you still ship to trade for guys that are proven because you guys have the cap room. Not every team had the cap room for trading for these guys. Again, this is what the Browns did. They got Coughlin, they drafted a left tackle, and they brought some guards. They paid them. Boom, Baker has a good O-line. Probably we had talked about it. One of the best in the league. Look how Baker is. Baker with time is dangerous.
Right, and I can just imagine, like you said, Burrow having that time. And I think one thing that you also said that was important is, and I didn't even think about this, going into this season, we had a stronger wide receiver core than if we were to take Jamar Chase, because going into the season when we ranked the receivers, we all in the division had that group high because you had A.J. Green, you had T. Higgins, you had Tyler Boyd, you had John Ross at that point. Auden Tate, like we thought that they were loaded. So I think, like you said, even in that situation, we knew that Baltimore had a strong secondary. We knew that the Steelers had a sneaky strong secondary. And so you guys weren't really as worried about those receivers like that as much because you guys had a Marcus Peters, you have a Marlon Humphrey, you have a Tavon Young in the slot, you have a Jimmy Smith. Like you guys were 4 corners deep. So us adding 3 receivers is not going to scare you because you guys have guys that can really match up with them. But I think that was great that you said that because I wasn't even thinking about it that way, that this receiving core coming into the season would be stronger in a sense than a receiving core where you don't know if AJ Green is coming back and you just simply add Jamar Chase to those 3 receivers. It's still not going to have Baltimore shaking in their boots versus having Joe Burrow with the offensive line that can actually block for him. Yeah. Then that's what's going to make people around the division say, oh, no, we might be in trouble. But until you have that, and this is also coming from a guy with the Ravens where they only have Marquise Brown, they have Willie Snead. So he's a guy that would probably take someone like a Jamar Chase. But even in that situation, I think, Sonny, you've told me, like, you still would rather make sure that Lamar's protected from the offensive line standpoint before taking that receiver.
Yeah, because the priority has to be protected. If you had that guy, look at Brady. They always had good O-line. Look at Peyton Manning. They always had good O-line. When any time you see, let's say, Rodgers or Drew Brees start struggling, look at their O-line. Their O-line play is not that good. Right? And what is the first thing those teams do? Let's fix it all. Look, if what the Bengals need is a stretch guy because Boyd is more of a slot guy, Higgins is quick but not super fast, Robbie Anderson will be a free agent next year. You can pay him. Look, you don't have to spend draft capital. Sign him for 3 years. They sign him. He got a 1-year deal this year. Sign him for a 3-year, I don't know, $30 million. Guarantee 20 of them. Boom, you have your stretch guy that is not a small guy, stretch guy. And again, if Burrow has time, now you're cooking because you have a stretch guy, you have your slot guy, which is a big body slot guy, and another big guy on Higgins. Do you need a tight end? Sure, that would be nice, but that's a luxury. That O-line is a necessity.
That's good. So, Sonny, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. Please let them know where they can find your stuff.
Hey, man, you can follow me, SZG Sports, on YouTube, Facebook, IG, Twitter. I know a lot of Bengals, Browns, Steelers fans have been following me on Twitter. I always send you a message when you follow me, just thanking you for the follow. Love conversating with all of you. You send me a message. We can trash talk, whatever you want. But, yeah, follow me, and thank you guys for having me, bro.
Yeah, appreciate it, Sonny. Appreciate that. So this concludes the New Stripe City episode. This was our preview of the Bengals versus the Ravens. It's your boy Ace Boogie. I'm going to be hitting you guys with some more content. I know it's been a while, but as usual, I will leave you guys with a who day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
He gave his rookie-laden Bengals a high mark as they passed from the kindergarten of preseason to the first grade of regular league play.
Cincinnati's best came in the first quarter, the first time they had the ball. Quarterback Dewey Warren and fullback Tom Smiley combined for Cincinnati's first pass completion.
Bengal founder Paul Brown fashioned this novel design. As new to the game today as the forward pass was a century ago.
Montana dragged down at the 31-yard line.
In 1996, the Bengals finished strong and finished right.
Touchdown!
Yes! You tell you what, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. We got to bow to Corey Dillon.
Bulldog from the 32 with Mixon in the backfield. It's Dalton out to Mixon. He's got some room.
It's Mixon diving up and over.
We're gonna hammer home competition, preparation, and diligence in everything we do.
It's a new year, same old question. How do you stop 85.
They're looking down the field for the home run ball. It's full. And in a day, touchdown.